Oh yeah, this is the powerful komiksman, Gerald Dorado.
And Chris Bacula Podcast.
This is Sawsawan Podcast, a special episode with an NPC in the house.
Zoom in on his face, Gerald.
Ay, nawala.
Hayaan mo na, napaaga. Napa-premature. Okay, NPC, stick out your tongue. Yan. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. Yan.
Daga nawala.
Yan. Yan. Okay lang
Naging
yan.
outro bigla.
Okay, naging outro. Ganyan. Ganyan talaga. Ganyan talaga.
Yan. Medyo nagkalat.
Ganyan talaga. Trial and error.
Actually, medyo under the weather. Ang
Nagkulang kasi ng ginkgo biloba supplement itong si Komiksman.
Pero we are now we've been ilang beses na unsyami ang episode na ito.
Tama.
Na kung ano nang nangyari sa schedules, sa mga availability at saka sa weather.
Yeah.
Diba?
Pero, Je, kasi first time ko marinig yung term na NPC.
Oh.
What is an NPC?
Teka, i-introduce muna natin ang ating
Ayan, si,
makapangyarihan na guest na si
Vexinglex!
Vexinglex.
Who was an NPC sa intro?
Oh,
Ano ba tong NPC, Lex?
An NPC is a gaming term called non-playable character. And it's somebody that just exists in the game to push forward the story or to give you a plot. You know, they don't necessarily have any agency. And I think yun yung difference between a playable character na yung ikaw yung gumagalaw, you can jump here, you can do that, you can make a huge difference doon sa story ng world na nilalaro mo. Whereas an NPC is just there. And they just respond to everything that the main character does.
Yes. Teka, before that,
Thank you,
natin
Lex. Thank you.
si Lexter. Si Lexter is, introduce yourself, Lexter. Vexinglex.
Hey, sinabi mo yung totoo niyang pangalan,
Okay
Je.
lang.
Okay, Vexinglex.
Hey, baby.
Lex na lang, Lex.
My name is Vexinglex, and I am an adult voice actor.
Yes.
And I'm here to play with your ears.
Sa mga taga-Spotify na subscribers namin, imagine niyo si Lex, Vexinglex.
Teka.
Ay isang, slave. A slave for your lust.
Yes, mistress. I
pero-
will do anything for you.
Ay, pero itong, ano bang uunahin natin? NPC o ito?
Hindi kasi na-mention ko yung NPC eh. So parang gusto ko. Kasi ako, ignorant ako doon sa meaning ng NPC eh. So, si Je, meron siyang episode doon sa kanyang Tikim, the Komiksman method. So, panoorin niyo yun. Pero yung unahin naming topic ngayon si Pura Luka Vega.
Pura Luka Vega.
Manalangin tayo.
Okay. At saka, actually, one of the reasons, yun talaga, aside from being a good friend, kasi Vexinglex had been, naging guest kita twice na yata.
Yeah.
Mga twice.
2 or 3 times.
Oo, diba? So, mga ganun. And naging guest mo na rin, Chris.
Yes, kasi nagustuhan namin, well, actually, meron tayong open mic ni ata noon, Je, sa TPKP.
Oo.
Tapos nag-join si Lex.
Yeah.
Pandemic days to eh. Tapos naantig ako sa kanyang magandang boses eh.
Napakaganda naman talaga. At saka, si Lex ay isang LGBT, ano bang tawag, membro ng LGBT?
Alay ba? Alay?
Yeah.
Hindi.
Ally
LGBT
is
talaga.
somebody that isn't a member of the LGBT, like
But
you're
supports.
cisgender, but supports
Yan.
the rights, blah, 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 blah.
So, ang term pag LGBTQ is
You just say LGBTQ.
part, you just part.
So LGBT si Lex.
Yes.
And if you've been following this channel, we've been talking about a lot of things na tungkol sa LGBT, about the gender ideology, and we've been on one particular side primarily.
Pero I'm curious, Lex, what's your pronoun?
He, him.
He, him.
He, him.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what he uses. So yun ang and I thought, knowing Lex, parang siguro kailangan nating magbigay din ng side doon sa kabila, di ba? And one of the best people I know, and very articulate and very knowledgeable about this,
Yes,
would be
sir.
the friend that we have here right now.
Yes,
Diba?
Vexinglex.
Vexinglex. Okay, so umpisahan na muna natin dito kay
Pura Luka.
Pura Luka Vega na ito.
Sabi, shot ka dito, Je. Shot.
Ito.
Ako,
Mahina.
shot ka din ko lang to kasi nagpa-persona ng grata kang hayop ka dyan sa General Santos City. Bakit ka nagpa-persona ng grata dyan, Pura?
Okay, wag na nating panoorin kasi ang dami nang gumawa ng video
Kaya
tungkol
nga,
dito.
kaya
Let's just go ahead and
Okay.
let it just play there
Sige,
and
sige.
pag-usapan na lang natin.
Sige.
Okay, so a refresher lang, naging viral itong si Pura Luka Vega.
Yep.
It ended up pa with sa kanya na naging persona ng grata.
Persona ng grata
Yeah.
sa General Santos City.
Dahil sa kanyang performance na ito.
Mukhang
Yan.
nag-tour.
No,
Nag-tour siya all over the Philippines.
Oh, so perform siya ng drag Jesus of Nazarene.
Buti pa siya, Jem, may bookings. Tayo, wala tayong gigs.
At kumakanta siya at kinanta niya ang Ama Namin in a rock yung in a bar, 'di ba? So, yan.
Yeah.
So, kino-cosplay niya si Jesus Christ.
Oh,
Specifically the Nazareno.
Nazareno.
And the Black Nazarene is a specifically Catholic figure. Kasi mga
Filipino Catholic na
Pero, tignan mo hindi niya pinaint na black yung kanyang face because
Yeah.
he was so, sensitive enough na baka malabel siya. Kagaya nung ginawa nung...
Blackface.
doing blackface.
Mismo, di ba? Naisip mo kung Nazareno yan, dapat itim siya, di ba? So, conscious siya na wag maka-offend. So, kaya pinaint niya na white yung kanyang face. Di ba? Saka nakita ng Nazarene na puti.
pero yung
Nagluta kasi.
Nagluta, tama. Nagluta.
nagluta si Black.
Black Nazarene na nakagluta. Nagmena. Alam mo yung mena? Dati ginagamit ko yun ng high school, Jay. Alam mo yung mena?
Oo, naalala ko.
Papaputi yun eh. Ginagamit ko yun.
Okay. So, a lot had been said and itong performance na to had been deemed blasphemous by a lot of, especially Catholics
Roman.
and even Christians. Although yung ibang mga Christian denominations like yung mga born again,
Yeah.
at least some of them, parang si Melo Yap nga, sabi niya,
Okay.
hindi daw blasphemy yan. Kasi hindi naman daw ganyan ang description ng itsura ni Jesus sa
Yeah.
Biblia.
Oh, tama.
It goes through a lot of these channels na why would you be offended by this because of this I'm offended because blah 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 blah. First of all, I find the performance hilarious.
Yes, sir.
Kasi isipin mo na lang, somebody took the time to put on, all of that, and then this specific version of the song actually has existed since 2015 ata, yung rock version ng. This is a Vocaloid version actually of the Ama Namin, and somebody pasted it on like Evangelion pa on the anime. I think this is a hilarious thing right now, but it is a very serious topic. Kasi you guys you've already shared your opinion about it, and a lot of other people have said very strong opinions on it. First of all, I think I'm not saying that you shouldn't be offended.
Oo.
If you're a Catholic, if you're a Christian, and you genuinely believe that this is not a good way of respecting your faith, this is not a good way of representing anything na religious, whatever, or you feel that this is offensive, karapatan mo yun. The thing is, I also believe that if you are not subjected to the benefits of that society or that religious system, and if people actually consider you as a non-entity of that, kasi nga drag queen siya, and they're a queer person is already not accepted by the church in many ways.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to ascribe to the limitations and boundaries of that system. So, hindi niya ginagawa to because she's not doing it because she hates Jesus. She's not doing this because she hates the church in general. I feel like what's going on here is you're made to sit down and think, why am I offended? Am I offended because it's a queer person doing it? Because there's been a lot of people, locally pa lang. You have Carlos Celdran, di ba? God rest his soul. Na he didn't dress up as Jesus. He actually committed what is now considered the instigating incident na ginawa yung batas na nagpo-protect ng religious feelings. It was because of Celdran's, damaso, like pumunta, he put on what I would say is like yung typical na costume ni Rizal, and then he put on yung damas on a placard, and then he went inside a holy place, a church, and then he stood there in silent protest nga to the injustices na hinahayaan na he's claiming na hinahayaan na ano ba to na mangyari,
tinotolerate.
na tinotolerate ng local church
Ng
natin.
simbahan yung
Yeah.
karumal-dumal na mga kalaswaan.
Yeah. Like, pedophilia, and then there's ano ba to?
Rape sa mga
rape,
kababaihan.
blah blah blah, all of that.
Well, actually, yung kay Celdran, more on yung protest niya yon against dun sa pagtutol ng Catholic Church sa RH bill. Yun ang naalala ko dun.
Tama.
Oh, there you go.
Ano ba yung take ng Catholic Church sa RH bill? Parang kasi pag birth control parang stops procreation ganyan.
Traditionally kasi ayaw nila nun kasi it's ang intindi ko based on sa mga values ng church, ng Christian faith kasi is to protect the family.
Yeah.
And they view it as hindi pro-family yung RH bill. Pero mapapaano tayo pag nagano tayo dyan sa RH bill?
Yun ang pinaglalaban ni Celdran nung time na yun.
Pero yun ang ano niya.
So masasabi mo, Jay, na extreme yung pagpasok niya sa simbahan in silent protest?
Hindi siya, alam ko nagkaroon ng commotion yun eh.
Yeah.
Nagkaroon ng commotion kaya siya, hindi ko, at
That's why
one
he
point,
left. Diba? Isn't that why he
Went
left?
to another country?
Yes.
I see. Oh, tama.
No, ang pagkaalala ko noon, maybe he was just sitting inside and at one point during the either consecration or at one point in the
Service.
sa mass, nag-ano siya, tinaas niya yung placard niya, damaso, gumagano
Sumisigaw siya.
Tapos pinaalis siya.
Okay.
Yun ang, I don't know if that's correct.
Pero yung kasi
yun ang-
nilusob niya yung simbahan eh. Ito, performance
This was
level.
in a space where performances like
Yes,
that
like
were either
theater.
expected.
Like the Book of Mormon. Kung
Book of
familiar
Mormon.
kayo sa Book of Mormon.
Isama mo pa yung si Medeo Cruz with his polytheism, which was in a gallery, a neutral space for that. Tapos it was so bad that he had to kind of, follow, go quiet and go under the radar for so long. Tapos even older is Dogma, that film with si Alan Rickman and si Matt Damon, and then even older than that, a year after I was born, 1988, yung The Last Temptation of Christ, which was I think banned here for a long time. The CBCP, they said na if you are a member of the Catholic faith, you are not going to watch these films.
The Last Temptation.
The Last Temptation ni Willem Dafoe tsaka ni Scorsese.
Tama.
Okay. So, ang view ko naman dito sa ginawa ni Pura, para sa akin, it is I think it is blasphemous kasi even to other Christians, kahit hindi ka Catholic, kasi it's the idea of Christ eh. 'Di ba? Yun ang pero to me kasi yung bawa sa atheism, ang isang pinagtataka ko is para obviously hindi natin alam kung kung Christian ba tong si Pura. Nabanggit niya ba na Christian ba siya? Pero ang sinasabi niya kasi ganito siya mag-worship. This is how we worship or I worship, 'di ba? Ang I think ang problema doon would be if you want to yung Catholic faith kasi is a very specific set of rules eh na ganito tayo yung kung Katoliko ka, this is how we do
May
things.
structure yung mass. Di ba? May structure siya.
And if you're gonna use our symbols, 'di ba? Kung gusto mong gumawa ng sarili mong way to worship and your own religion, bahala ka, pero don't use our symbols.
And that's why I say it's not your protest against that I have a problem with. It's when it's inconsistent. You have to be consistent with criticizing people who are who you believe are offensive to the faith or are doing things that are against your religious beliefs. Kasi there are a lot of people who have already said terrible things about Jesus, even locally. There are a lot of people who represent Jesus Christ or the Catholic faith that are doing very, very bad things. And I don't want to mention names and I don't want to mention incidents kasi syempre, I'm trying to also to protect myself from that kind of retaliation. Kasi ngayon, Pura has I will say Pura has people protecting her. And she's in what I would consider a safe enough space na pwedeng hindi siya necessarily na masasaktan and there's no physical attacks na presented.
Hindi siya magagalaw. Wala siya sa general population.
Yeah,
Yung
yeah.
ibig sabihin.
Yeah, but then again, it's yung Catholic people naman are predominantly hindi naman sila violente na parang ibang sinasabi ko dati parang wala
si Muhammad ang ginawa mong caricature.
Ibig sabihin, have you ever heard of, let's say, isang grupo ng mga sakristan who hunts down blasphemers, di ba? Kumbaga, parang it's not, the Catholic faith had been the butt of jokes, the butt of insults of everybody, 'di ba? Especially sa Amerika, 'di ba? Talagang wala na silang respeto sa mga Katoliko
Kasi alam nila hindi ganoon yung repercussions if they target the Catholic Church.
Mas maano pa nga yun sa sa iglesia, 'di ba?
Yung friend namin na stand-up comedian si Gold, yun pati yung number ng bahay niya, personal number niya, pinost online.
And
they
meron
doxed
talagang
him.
real threats.
I would say that's not a fully that's not fully complete na statement kasi you don't have to be physically violent towards somebody directly for them to feel in danger or for them to be in danger. The fact that a lot of Christians, or let's say the Catholic faith, or even some denominations of Christianity, are against reproductive health. They're against protecting women through divorce, and they're also against the sex education in the right levels and in the right way of teaching sex education in school. That eventually leads to violence and to unrest and yung nagiging unhealthy na yung growth ng tao because of a very specific set of beliefs that not everybody genuinely ascribes to. And I'm not saying all Christians. There are Christians who are saying na, hey, you know what, Pura Luka is doing whatever she wants to do. I don't believe that it's the right thing, but it also shouldn't be a reason for people to stop expressing their faith properly, or for people to stop giving her the right to express it.
Well, I guess my point is it's easy for people. Kaya to me, kumbaga, when you disparage Christians, it's not impressive anymore. Kasi
a lot of comedians sa US have been using Catholic jokes, Christian jokes na parang naging acceptable na nga siya. Para siyang hacky joke na lang na ginagawa .
It's like part of the quick mga
parang you should
quick
have
buttons
one Christian
na
joke at least, di ba?
Yeah. I feel like it should be put into perspective din na Catholics are not necessarily the most violent people in the world. They're not. There are other religions that are believed to be more violent. And again, I'm not going to say anyone else specifically.
Well, not siguro necessarily violent, but more intense.
Dahil yung extremists, they have extremists dun sa religion na yun and they can do harm.
Yeah. But then historically, the Catholic faith, the Catholic religion, specifically not the Catholic faith, the Catholic religion, the practice of it has been incredibly violent in the past. And in fact, a lot of nowadays America, a lot of the white nationalists, a lot of those that are doing school shootings are seen as Christian. They are proudly, openly, that's what they declare that their faith is Christian. And again, it's not the entire religion. It's not the entire faith na I'm assuming, it's not the problem. No. It's specific people who are using that religion as a way to incite violence against others.
But would Pura Vega cosplay as Muhammad?
I think, first of all, I would be very careful with the assumption that would assume na pwede siyang maging ganon. Na pwedeng maging violent ang mga Muslims towards Pura. Because again, to assume that is going to be problematic. But again, I don't know. I honestly don't know kasi I'm going to assume Pura used to be or is a practicing
Hindi
Christian.
ko ina-assure magiging violent yung Muslim. Ang sinasabi ko lang, if she made fun of the Catholic Church, then make fun of all religion.
I think it should be given the space. I think there should be a safe enough space that not just religious belief, any belief, any kind of ideology should be open to criticism. Stoicism says the harder it is for you to explain something, the harder it is for you to put down the evidence that something exists, the more it should be open to harsh criticism.
Yung may dalawang aspeto dun sa sinabi mo, Chris. So yung isa is yung kung si Pura. kumbaga tanggalin na natin si Pura.
Okay.
If someone else kung gagawin nila 'yon, it is like I said, hindi naman necessarily lahat magiging violent.
Yeah.
Pero yung intensity kasi and culturally sa mga sa Islam, like I said, wala ka namang nakitang sakristan na mga na mga parang mga sigang sakristan, 'di ba? Na parang walang ISIS na mga sakristan. Pero sa 'di ba, mga ganun sa kanila, of course, yung mga ganun, even the Muslim faith have condemned them. 'Di ba? So kasi this is not how we do things. This is kumbaga parang a bastardization of the Quran, the teachings, yung ibang sinasabi nila about mga people like ISIS. Pero it's curious na walang ganun sa mga Katoliko kasi nasa doktrina yun sa doktrina ng Christians kasi is may doktrina tayo na para turn the other cheek, 'di ba? Mga ganyan. At saka yung pag binato mo ng tinapay, ng bato mo tinapay.
Pag binato mo tinapay,
ganun So it's kumbaga inherently nasa teaching talaga siya. Ganun.
I'll say that yes, that is very true. You are taught mostly to be passive or to be indifferent towards any kind of abuse thrown at you. However, to recontextualize it, that can also lead kasi to abuse. If you do not speak up against injustice, if you are also not given the space to speak your mind, particularly when it is against the authority of your religion or of your home, nagiging open ka rin to that. And that's why a lot of queer people are saying na I used to be Catholic, I used to be in fact I identify as post-Christian. I'm still a deist. I still believe in the existence of a higher power, but I am coming from after the religion that created the trauma that made it harder for me to reconcile my faith with common sense and with working.
Let's talk about that later.
Sige.
Magandang topic yan. Pero I just want to say this. Isang point na sinabi ko kasi dun sa isang podcast is parang yung doctrine na yun na parang tolerance yun If you're gonna really think about it, of all the main religions, the Christianity had been the most tolerant. Para of course, hundreds of years ago, nung mga panahon talaga ng mga conquistador, yung mga tawag dito,
Magellan,
the Inquisition.
Yung mga inquisitors pala, hindi pala conquistadors. Sa Inquisition nga. Yung mga witch hunts, 'di ba? Yun. So, yung idea ng blasphemy and apostasy, yung kakalas ka sa pagiging Kristiyano sa faith mo, mas talagang nila yun, tawag doon, mas pina-persecute nila.
Extreme, no? Hinahang, sinusuno.
Oo. So, but then, siguro, as the more, kumbaga, nagiging modern yung nagkakaroon ng mga discoveries and all, yung same doctrines of turning the other cheek and tolerance, parang I think parang it led to for the Catholic Church to relent on that grasp dun sa hold nila sa ngayon wala nang witch hunts yung at least katulad nung dati.
It doesn't look the same anymore.
Diba? Hindi na katulad nung dati. It doesn't look extreme anymore. And also yung mga it's the same concept that allowed science pursuit. 'Di ba? Na parang when the church parang kumbaga, sige, tama kayo. Ano na? Hindi na Earth ang center ng universe.
Yeah.
'Di ba?
Hindi na flat.
It led to more discoveries.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Kasi parang so in a way, kasi I don't think well, of course, yung paghina ng Christian power, yung Roman Catholic Church, kasama na rin dyan yung fall of kingdoms, fall of empires, di ba? Of course, may politics involved dyan.
Yeah.
So, mga global politics from the 1700s onwards,
From
kasama yon. So, it significantly reduced the power and the grasp of the Roman Catholic Church in the world.
Yeah.
Yun. Pero, dahil dun sa paghina na yon, whether kumbaga, kagustuhan nila o hindi.
Yeah.
It led to more progress
For
I think,
them to adjust.
and also civil rights.
Yep.
Diba? Madaming civil rights na na parang ngayon, sige, mga asawa, sige, pwede na kayong
And even yung Pope, mas naging lenient na siya doon sa whole LGBTQ aspect ng society.
Yeah.
Kasi dati pag may Pope parang never pinag-uusapan 'yun, 'di ba? Pero ngayon may Pope tayo na pinag-uusapan.
Yeah. Particularly because science has proven and evidence has proven that a lot of the words used in the King James Bible were not the same that was previously in previous translations. And if you go older, it wasn't homosexuality, it was pedophilia that was being condemned. And again, I love that you mentioned that religion nowadays is now more open to that. And I feel like ang problema kasi ng social media ngayon, and this is something that you've mentioned like years ago, na people are only fed very specific things when it comes to social media. You are not given everything to have a fully informed opinion. And so, religion should be open to criticism.
Yes,
Not
definitely.
if I would say God is a concept that people not everyone can understand. So God is not something that can technically be criticized because they're not able to speak up for themselves. But the belief in God is what should be open to criticism and how you process and express that belief. And I feel like that's the biggest takeaway ko dito. Na sige, you can be offended because they put on, like the clothes to represent the Nazarene, and then there can be pushback from the community na hindi, this is how I worship, this is how, or hindi naman talaga ganito itsura ni Jesus, blah, blah, blah. So again, it's the belief that should be open to criticism.
Yes.
And I would say na I should be open to criticism as well for sharing these kinds of opinions. And if there is evidence to prove myself wrong, sure, I'm ready to face that.
Teka. Ito lang. Yung isang thing about that, related man,
Okay.
is yun yung isa na, di ba, I said kanina, yung Christianity has relented tremendously compared to how it was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
In terms of blasphemy.
Yeah.
And doon sila humina eh. Isa yun sa naging dahilan kung bakit humina. Kumbaga parang sinasabi nga, yung isang interview ni Andrew Tate, sabi niya, parang ang natitira na lang na malakas na religion, as a religion is Islam. Kasi yung values nila, they have held to those values more strongly than Christians did. Kasi, kumbaga, hanggang ngayon, hindi sila basta-basta magpapa-insulto sa'yo. Diba? Hindi siya, kumbaga, kasi that's how you, in a way, control your congregation eh.
Yeah.
Diba? Na parang, kung yung Diyos mo, pwedeng bastusin ng kung sino-sino lang, then hindi yun respetong Diyos.
Nakapunta ka na ba ng Maharlika Village?
Hindi.
Sa may ano yan eh.
Hindi ko alam ba.
Sa may ano yan bro, yung FTI, malapit sa FTI. So yung Maharlika Village, kilala siyang mga parang ano siya, parang bagong baryo,
Oo,
Caloocan.
oo.
Parang puro Muslim community doon.
Okay.
So lahat ng mga taxi drivers, takot pumasok doon kasi pag pumasok sila doon, pwedeng hindi na sila makalabas ng buhay. Kasi aside doon sa community, nagkaroon ng bad rep kasi ang daming mga hold-upper doon sa loob, wala silang pwedeng tawagan na rest back even sa authorities kasi nga united sila eh. United yung mga Muslim, yung Muslim community na parang hindi ko isasang-alang-alang yung brother ko sa inyo. So pag nandito ka, safe ka. Parang ganun. Na lamang ko lang to sa mga taxis, sa mga taxi drivers na nasakyan ko.
I heard that recently na may nasa Grab ako na there are specific places that are predominantly Muslim na hindi pinupuntahan, and I don't know how true it is. I don't know how extreme it is. And I used to live kasi in Novaliches, like very close to what was called the Muslim area, and I was treated very well. And even then I was gay, I was openly gay, but it wasn't a problem for them.
Yes.
So my experience with them isn't necessarily everyone's experience with these communities. So again, I'll say, if your faith is strong enough, if you believe in something enough, and you're able to practice that, this should not be enough to shake it.
Pero yung ibig sabihin ni Jay, yung fear to cause insult sa kanila eh. Na parang mag-second thoughts ka eh. Like, unlike dito sa Catholicism or Christianity, parang, sige go, all out tayo dyan.
Probably because
accepted to eh.
Probably because the Muslim faith has been largely in pre-modern and modern times very insular sila. Very monolithic sila na they didn't necessarily try to spread out as much in the same way that Christianity did. Most of the history that we are taught it's because God, golden glory, diba? Na you were given this order by the Catholic Church and by the Catholic kings and royalty to spread the quote unquote the will of God to other countries, and most of that was Catholic. And I guess naging mas dahil nga dumami na ng dumami yung spread noon, it's
Sige, tuloy lang.
I think it's going to be ano ba to?
Yeah.
It's made Christianity more open to that, or it's forced Christianity to be open to it. Siguro yun na lang.
Yeah.
Saka yung gera noon nung 90s, yung sa Mindanao, kasi gusto nila maging separate state. Diba?
Oh, yeah.
Sa Philippines.
Yeah.
So parang andun yung fear na to insult yung mga brothers from Mindanao. Kasi, ginigera nga natin sila eh.
Well,
yung
it's
ARMM, the Autonomous Region of
tama.
Muslim
Kasi gusto nila
Mindanao.
maging separate state sa Pinas.
Anyway, so you said something about post-Christianism. Can you explain more? Let's talk about that.
This is not a widely used term. It's just a term that I'm trying to coin, and I share it with other people who share the same experiences with me. Post-Christianity, to me, is I'm still practicing my faith, but I am no longer held back by the very specific way that local Christianity has enforced. Kasi, di ba, people still believe that if you're a Christian, you have to ascribe to, like, if you're a woman, you are only limited to these specific tasks, these specific jobs, and if you're a man, these are your responsibilities. So now I'm living my life post that.
Okay.
Na I'm still recovering from it. I'm going through therapy. I'm still looking for therapists who are specifically specializing in yung religious trauma. So it's a thing that people are speaking up na parang Christianity did not necessarily help me become a better person. It actually filled me with trauma. And this is why I'm expressing my faith this way, or this is why I became atheist or agnostic. And this is why I criticize Christianity very specifically. And again, religion, the freedom to express your religion, this is a human right. We have a right to that, and we have a right to defend it in a way that is, safe, and it's our responsibility din naman to uphold the beliefs of that religion. But it is also an imperfect way to express our beliefs. It's not perfect.
Yes, okay.
So, I guess with the Muslim faith kasi, when a lot of imams, when a lot of Muslim people are ano ba to, are asked about this, they're saying na to us this is not something that that we believe is acceptable in our religion, but we will not damage another person. We will not hurt another person because of that. We will not come up to them and say, "Hey, you're going to hell." Because of it, you are seen as an abomination in the eyes of Allah. And when you compare that to Christianity, proselytization kasi yan eh. The first thing that the most Christian ano ba to? Yung nagpupunta ka to different countries and to talk about the faith, yung missionaries. Pag nag-evangelize ka, one of the first things that they teach is the doctrine of sin and the doctrine of fear. Hey, you're not Christian, I'm gonna tell you, you're going to hell.
Ganun di ba yung mga Mormons when they indoctrinate?
Pretty much, yeah.
May tanong ako sa ano. May iba pa akong tanong dun sa mga sinabi mo. Pero
sure.
ito yung isang tanong ko about general question about LGBT people who are, yung sinabi mo, like you, na parang traumatized about the
Faith.
The faith.
Yeah.
And kumbaga, kasi this is the most unfortunate thing about Christianity eh. As much as yung may tolerance talaga na mga teachings ni Jesus Christ. And this is just my interpretation. So baka may ibang interpretation ng Bible, ha?
Yeah.
So yung mga verses kasi talaga na nandun sa Leviticus, 'di ba? Are there.
Yeah.
Kumbaga parang
Yung mismong sinasabi.
nandun talaga eh. 'Di ba nandun talaga yung mga bersikulo na yun eh. Na parang if you are gonna believe that the Bible is the Bible na talagang saligan mo ng papaniwalaan, then you have no choice but to believe it. And
yeah, okay.
Okay. Pero so yun. And so ang tanong ko is, do you think si Pura, of course we cannot know for sure kasi siya makakasagot nito, no?
Pura, if you were ever going to listen to this, please, these men, these are people who are willing to listen to you and who are willing to give you space and ask you difficult but open questions. Please come over.
Oh, please.
Sabi sa
Thank you.
Leviticus 18 verses 22, you shall not lie with a
Yan.
male as with a woman. It is an abomination.
Oh, yun. So, ang tanong ko is, do you, parang, as gay people, na parang, ang dating kasi sa akin, is, gusto niya pa, hindi ko alam kung, sabi kasi ni Pura is, this is how he or she wants to practice the faith.
Yeah.
Express
Diba?
the faith.
Yun yung,
Yeah.
ganyan yung, ano niya ng worship. Yung pala, worship, not faith. This is how he practices his worship. Ganun.
Okay.
So, yun ang paraan niya na mag-worship sa Catholic. Hindi sinabi precisely kung
Catholic siya.
Oo.
Okay.
So, hindi ko alam kung gusto niya pa bang maging Catholic?
Ako,
At bakit gusto niya pang maging Catholic kung meron ng mga bersikulo na ganyan?
kaya nga na parang anti-gay. Taka lang
Oh.
Sige, go.
Before that, kasi nakita ko yung apology niya eh.
Oh.
Medyo binasa ko, hindi naman exactly binasa, pero yung summarization sa utak ko, parang piniloso po niya yung yung apology niya eh.
Oh.
Parang hindi...
Nag-double down nga siya eh.
Oh,
Diba?
yung nga eh. So, ano ba talaga siya? Gusto ba niyang i-respect yung church o yung...
Kinontradict niya yung parang okay, sorry sa mga naka-offend ko, pero gagawin ko pa rin.
Gagawin ko pa rin.
Yun yung basically yun ang sinasabi niya eh. Pero yung tanong ko, Lexter, what do you think? Parang okay, gusto niya pa rin maging Katoliko despite feeling what do you call ostracized? Do you think ganyan or at least how do you feel ganun?
I will answer both of your questions.
Okay.
I'll start with you.
Sige.
I don't think Pura wants to be the same Catholic that is represented by the majority, the religious majority natin. I don't think that's what she wants to be. Again, we will only know pag nakausap na natin siya, and my partner actually knows Pura, and we're gonna see if they can take the time, and if they feel safe and secure enough that you guys can interview her. No promises.
Of course.
And I feel like what her apology was a very specific and pointed apology. Na I don't want you guys to stay offended. Unfortunately, this is what I'm going to keep doing. So I think she's more like, hindi ko mapipigilan yung pagiging offended ninyo because this is how I have planned out my tour. This is how I've planned out the thing. And again, drag is a form of very visible protest against specific violences and specific doctrines made against the queer community. So I don't think she wants to continue offending, but she is in this very specific trajectory that will continue to offend people because of all of her performances.
Yeah. Yun yung isang sinabi ko dun sa isang podcast ko about that is this is actually not just a performance. This is activism.
Protest.
Yeah.
This is Pura Luka Vega's activism na happening. Hindi lang siya, and pag nagiging aktivista ka, you want to kumbaga parang
provoke.
Maging provocative at
Yes.
saka maggawa ng stir.
Parang Black Panther movement, no?
Oh.
I'll say that. Yeah, I would agree na this is Pura's way of saying, hey, this is something that people should sit down and talk about. This is something that we will be very angry about. I'm not saying that Christians should not be offended. They have every right to be offended, but they should be able to explain it in a way that can be understood by non-Christians then. Kasi you can't just say, you can't offend my religion because God is sacred to me. How will a non-Christian, how will an atheist be able to make sense of that? Na parang, I'm not a theist. I don't believe in the existence of God. So I don't care if I criticize that religion. Kasi the presence of God in my life has not affected me in any way. Or in fact, it has been very negative. So I think karapatan ni Pura na makapagsalita ng ganun, pero responsibilidad niya na makaupo din kasama ng mga tao na gusto ring i-criticize yung ginagawa niya.
Pero ang problema sa religion, lahat sila may sheep mentality. So minsan hindi rational yung the way sila mag-defend. Alam mo yan.
Unfortunately.
Kasi pag sinabi nung sheep
Nung shepherd.
pastol, parang
Yeah.
yun na yun eh.
Yeah. And then to answer your question, since I cannot deny that the Leviticus has been written down. And again, there's research nga saying that it's not to lie with man as with woman, it's to lie with children as with woman. But that's something completely different. I am not a biblical history expert.
Okay.
But I propose to you Matthew 22:36-40. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all Teka, tito. Yeah. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments.
Yun nga, di ba?
Love your neighbor.
Diba?
As you love yourself.
Yan yung isa pang yun yung isang doctrine, na Christian doctrine that makes Christians very tolerant
sa
diba?
mga insults, sa mga jokes.
Pero of course, meron talagang mga biblical talagang
May mga
Bible trumpers, 'di ba,
may-
na talagang ganito yung ganito yung sinabi dito di ba?
Yeah.
So, and ito sometimes pointing to the church naman, sometimes most of the time pala may mga may mamimili sila magche-cherry pick sila kung alin ang gagamitin na
And that's
versikulo.
yun yung pinakamalaking
Parang
problem
sa
na.
dating daan, 'di ba? Si Eddie
Yeah.
Soriano, 'di ba?
Yeah. So and again, to kind of capstone this discussion, this is exactly why I appreciate itong Sawsawan podcast and why I'm very thankful that the two of you have invited me, because this is where what I will say is called freedom of thought.
Yes.
Because, again, this is freedom of thought because we are able to discuss conflicting or perhaps different beliefs and coming from different backgrounds. And again, limited yung representation ko of the LGBTQIA community because I was born a man and I still consider myself a man who just likes fucking other men.
Yes.
So I'm not a trans person. I'm not a trans man, trans woman, whatever. The other people will have their own opinions. This is freedom of thought and the freedom to create that space to say, hey, I don't agree with this, but this is where I stand, why I disagree with you, or why I agree with you. Ang cautious lang naman talaga ako is when people say freedom of thought, when it allows them to take away the rights and freedoms of other people, which is why I am strongly criticizing na bakit ginawa ninyong batas na bawal mag-offend ng religious feelings. And buti nga sinabi ni Chel Jokno, he posted a response to it na
Very specific.
Very specific na it cannot be done or it is considered a religious offense if it is done in a place of worship like a church or a temple or a place where it is normally practiced. Since this was done outside of that, yung viral video, it is not necessarily religiously offensive in the law.
Okay.
According to the law that
Tama.
we created mismo.
Unlike what Carlos Celdran did.
Yes, that's why that law was put into practice na.
Kaya nga walang
Nag-defend.
walang nagdemanda.
Wala.
Hindi sila dinemanda ng kahit sinong pare.
Yes.
Kasi
CBCP.
wala pang law nun.
Hindi. Yung dito kay Pura,
I mean,
may law na pero hindi applicable.
unlike kay
yung law.
Carlos.
Oo.
Yeah.
Kay Carlos kasi nandun siya sa Manila Cathedral eh.
Mismong Manila Cathedral pa, of all places.
Oo, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Okay, pero yung huling sinabi mo, Lex, it's a perfect transition to naman.
Yung docu na sinan mo sa kanya?
sa
Was it Instagram? Instagram mo pinadala sa akin?
What is a
Yata,
woman?
I think it was IG.
So we're gonna talk about gender ideology naman.
Okay.
Okay, so
I will do my best to answer these questions
Yeah, sure,
because
sure.
again, I'm not a professor on anything.
Yes.
Well, we are
We're-
residents of the earth and this is gonna affect everyone.
Okay.
Kasi ako naman, you know me, 'di ba? Tawag dito, sa akin naman wala talaga yung kung bakla ka or tomboy or kung ano ka. My only objection about dito sa craziness, what I consider craziness dun sa LGBT agenda would be yung propagating yung gender ideology na yung against the binary of the sexes. Parang it muddies the idea of to me it's I would even say it's an attack on truth. Na parang everybody knows, even a child would know na pag na yung difference ng babae at lalaki. Kahit ako, nung bata ako, alam ko na yun pag babae yung kausap ko. pag yung batang babae at saka batang lalaki. And nobody explained it to me. It is, to me, at least on my experience, it was inquisitive. Na parang, ano siya? Alam ko yan. Kumbaga, tapos kung maganda, instantly, parang crush ko siya, di ba? Bata pa lang ako noon. So, to me, although, ang ginawa kasi ng gender ideology is, they separated sexes from gender.
Yeah.
Diba? So, the gender identity is how you identify kung separately from your physical body.
Yeah. How
Diba?
you want people to treat you.
Yes.
And sexuality is how you respond sexually towards other people. Na my sexuality is I'm
Queer.
Basta ang daming eh.
200
There's so
plus.
many there's so many
Sobrang
definitions, and I have to admit it also overwhelms me. It becomes very difficult for me to deal with it, not because I don't like it, but because it's hard to follow.
Fluffies. Anong tingin mo sa mga fluffies?
Fluffies?
Flurry.
Furries.
Furries. Sorry, furries.
Oh, well, they're one of my biggest audiences. They're one of my biggest patrons. I've voiced werewolves. I've voiced yeah.
Wait,
So
check
it's-
out your plug mo nga yung yung stuff.
Sa mga gusto pong magpa-commission sa akin, you don't have to be a furry. You don't have to be gay. You don't have to be queer. You can be straight. You can be a woman. You can be whatever you want to be. Just go to www.vexinglex.com.
Yeah.
That's where you can commission me. I have I have a wide range of things that I can do for you.
Lex.
Yes.
Lex. Jay, i-zoom in mo to.
Teka,
Samantha.
Ang hina ni Samantha. Okay. Teka, gusto kong pakita yung Nasaan yung website mo? Bakit wala?
www.vexinglex.com.
Vexing.
It should be there. www.vexinglex.
Tama na.
That's literally what I do. That's literally what I do.
Ayan, ito pala.
Yan. Commission your own personalized Vexinglex audio.
Yeah.
Well, as you can hear, our guest is a very talented voice actor and writer. Kasi ikaw nagsusulat niyan di ba?
It's actually 90% of it is improvised.
Improvised.
So yung
diba?
yung imagination mo is very wild,
Yep.
'di ba? Parang na-envision mo siya.
Yep.
'Di ba?
Yep.
Kasi ako nung nag-i-stand up ako when I'm telling a joke, ini-imagine ko nandun ako sa situation na yun.
Yeah.
So ikaw ganun din.
Yeah, in a way, I do have ideas that I write down, and I do have a sequence of things that I feel like should help me in creating the beginning, the middle, and the end. Of course, maraming climaxes involved. Pero I do it without a script. If there's something that I do need to say na gusto kong specific yung wording niya, I'll write it down, I'll type it down. But again, it depends on what people want to commission me. If they have a script na gusto nilang sundan ko, because it's not all erotic eh.
Anong sample ng mga commissions na binibigay sa'yo?
The most recent one was daddy audio. Gusto nila na, they want me to be their daddy, and kakatapos ko lang mag-gym or kakatapos ko lang magtrabaho, and then uuwi ako. And then the listener, who isn't necessarily a man, there have been women who enjoy my audio, and then I do I let off steam by getting steamy with the listener.
Medyo may tingling sensation na ako, Lex.
So merong live na interactions with you
Ito
sometimes?
parang pre-made.
This is pre-made, but there are events on the Reddit and Discord channels that I go to that have live recordings then. Pero ako lang yung nagre-record, and then nagko-comment sila ng parang ito yung gusto nila, and then I'll react to it. So parang parang
NPC.
live stream.
Parang NPC ka na rin in a way.
Parang streamer din. Ganun.
Well,
Ang hirap nun, no? Ilang hours usually pag live?
It's about 30 to 45 minutes
At least
lang.
hindi ganun ka-grueling.
Yeah, it takes more time for me nowadays to do recordings, kasi now that I know what I want to sound like, now that I have a very specific audience to cater to, I take about 1 to 2 hours recording it, and then maybe 30-45 minutes to edit it, kasi lahat ng gusto ko nandun na, nagagawa ko na. And again, I have to thank you very directly. This man, si Gerald, has been instrumental in beginning that journey, kasi ikaw yung nagbigay sa akin ng mic, ikaw yung nagsabi sa akin, hey, set this up, make this work. Make your voice heard by the masses. And and thank you also for hosting yung mga yung first na interview.
Yeah, the interview
Yung first podcast
yes,
natin.
I have a podcast episode with Vexinglex. Check it out, Chris Bacala Comedy.
well, obviously it was the right call, 'di ba? So, cheers to
Thank you.
Vexinglex.
Okay.
Maraming salamat.
So we can end the episode with that.
Teka, pag-usapan pa natin ng konti yung gender ID. May sagot ka, hindi mo pa yata nasabi.
I feel like my opinion on that is it should be open to criticism as well. Na people of from the queer community should be given the space to speak up about it and to have their opinion about it, but they should also be open to being criticized na, teka lang, what are these things that you're saying? And I'm not saying that I have a different opinion of what a woman is or what a man is. Kasi if we are to insist that a woman is this, and this, if a person is unable to do these things, do they stop becoming a woman? It's a long debate that has been going on for hundreds of years now, like with the rights of a woman, with whatever. But again, if you want your beliefs, if you want to share your beliefs, if you have an ideology that you believe is right, you have to be open to harsh criticism of it. You cannot place that above discussion.
Oh. But I think ang problema diyan would be yung those are two completely opposing views. 'Di ba? Parang if you're gonna legislate, you're gonna need to choose one. Kasi the one side says that men and women are very specific, that the genders yun lang naman ang sinasabi ko eh. Parang you can identify anything you want na parang yung gender mo, choose your gender if you believe in the separation of the sexes and genders, then go ahead. Pero when it comes to legal matters, I think it's so much easier and makes more sense na dalawa yon kasi we are born really as men and women, and there are certain features and disadvantages of being both. And if you're gonna disregard that in the name of parang appeasing yung feelings mo, 'di ba, na parang let's say si Brock Lesnar ka and you want to identify as a 6-year-old girl. Kasi may ganun it gets crazy.
I have a problem with that.
Diba?
Yeah,
So when it
big
becomes
problem with
crazy, when you legislate laws that allow such craziness, it becomes a problem. Ano yan?
Sa space ko, ganun din eh. Parang hindi ka na pwedeng, kung pag nag-identify siya na ganito siya, hindi mo siya pwedeng hindi irespeto. Regardless kung yung belief mo is, hindi, you're a woman, you're a man. Hindi mo na pwedeng gawin yun. Kasi very critical sila. At pag na-offend sila, either mawawalan ka ng work or mawapost ka sa social media. So parang nakikita ko, para ka na lang church eh, kay Pura Vega eh. Di ba? Wala kang pinagkaiba dun sa nag-criticize kay Pura Luka Vega na ganun. Kasi parang hindi ka na ba pwedeng magsabi ng own opinion mo? Kasi ito yung kinalakihan mo. Parang ngayon, pag hindi nila gusto yung sinasabi mo, automatic canceled ka. Automatic parang ang tawag doon?
Homophobic, transphobic.
Na hindi naman yun yung intention mo. Hindi naman yun yung ibig mong sabihin.
Okay. I think, at the risk of this extending, I'm sure we're going to have more discussions about this. I will say two things. The first thing is, kahit ako nahihirapan. Nahihirapan din ako to understand, the ideology, like the minutiae of the ideology. I find it incredibly difficult to remember everything. So I will leave it to the experts, and I will leave it to people to constantly discuss it and make it work, make it make sense, lahat na. Secondly, I will quote, and I'll try to quote as accurately as I can, si Neil deGrasse Tyson when he was asked about the question on gender and sexuality. Now, what is it really? Like scientifically, what should it be? His answer was very safe, but it was full of respect. He said, regardless of my opinion on the matter, it should not change how we treat other people, and it should not make it harder for people to live. And I feel like that should be the same thing for both sides. Na we cannot use ideology, we cannot use religion, and we cannot use, as you said, like the craziness or whatever, we cannot use any extremism to change the law. And that might be a very neutral thing for people. Like, they might think that I'm being very passive about it. But all I want is men, women, queers, non-binary people, They should be given the same rights, the same freedoms, and they should be upheld to the same responsibilities.
Isa speak. Actually, I think I asked this to you before.
Yeah.
'Di ba na parang ang isang hindi ko maintindihan kasi dito is why would somebody syempre may mga may mga tao talaga na may gender dysphoria, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Pero bakit kailangan mong paniwalaan ko yung hindi not directly to you
I know. I'm aware of nuance.
So bakit mo kailangan na i-require ako, 'di ba? Hindi na yung sa akin 'di ba? Bakit gusto mong i-insist na paniwalaan ko yung pinapaniwalaan mo when I am perfectly okay with you existing over there. Usually hindi pa nga kita kilala, 'di ba?
Pero kulang
diba?
pa 'yan.
Oh, 'di ba?
Kulang
Si
pa yan.
Pura Luka, 'di ba? Oh, sige, hindi naman kita kilala diyan 'di ba? O kaya kung sino mang diyan, pangalan si Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, kunyari doon. So bakit or any other trans woman who believes in this na parang bakit kailangan mo na paniwalaan ko na babae ka talaga? 'Di ba? Anong kawalan sa iyo kung hindi ako maniwala doon? 'Di ba? At bakit kailangan mo na i-insist sa akin 'yon? At kailangan mo akong i-punish kung hindi ko paniwalaan yung
Saka yung
paniniwala mo?
mga terms na bilang lumabas doon sa ganong klaseng paniniwala like yung dead naming,
Yeah.
na parang dati nakilala ka naman talagang ganito Tapos hindi ko alam na hindi ka na pala pwedeng sabihan ng ganito. Parang hindi naman dahil sinasadya mo ng tao na yun. Dahil doon kita nakilala
Yeah.
At hindi naman galing from a place of hate yun
Yeah.
Pero ang dating parang ganun.
And that should be given space din. That should be considered by the queer community. And a huge number of my listeners and my patrons are openly trans men and trans women. Kasi I create audio that specifically caters to their needs. And a majority of them are okay with, like innocently enough na nakilala kita as this. Okay, you know what? Let me tell you that this is who I am now. If you insist on talking to me, na dead name or misgender, then I'll stay away from you. Hindi na natin gagawin. I'm not gonna associate with you anymore. And that's the normal, sensible thing to do. Unfortunately, there are instances where, again, mahabang discussion to, and I am not fully equipped to do that, they will insist na, no, it has to be everyone's responsibility to cater to me, and it becomes a poor representation of the queer and of the queer and trans experience. Na, again, nobody here is able to remember all of those pronouns.
Kaya
like
nga,
it's
diba?
not.
And it's
Ako,
also-
I have accidentally misgendered and dead named people out of kasi I met them as either as a man or a woman, and then now they would say, "Oh, Lex, by the way, ito ako," and I'll say, "Okay, I'm sorry. This is how I will address you now." It should be that. It should be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Any form of extremism is unhealthy, regardless of the side
Or
you're coming
aggressiveness
from.
towards...
Aggressiveness, yeah.
Kasi nangyari sa akin sa isang bar
Kwento mo, Chris. baka
Ayoko
na.
na. Baka marami akong kaibigan
Oh
na
my
ganyan.
God.
And ito, ang opinion ko naman sa pronouns, I don't mind kasi it's really a small thing.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Kung personal interaction, nandito lang tayo, 'di ba? Pero mag-iiba siguro yung dynamics if I'm gonna be speaking publicly. 'Di ba? Kasi I have my own stance, 'di ba? Pero ang mahirap kasi sa pronouns, let's say if you, kung sasabihin mo, ikaw Lex, sasabihin mo she, her ang pronoun mo, tapos you look like that, na parang, di ba, lalaking itsura mo, kumbaga, mentally, yun hindi ka sanay na parang it is a struggle.
May disconnect.
The disparity is there,
It is an extra effort for me to keep fighting my natural instinct na parang kasi visual being an artist, you know this na parang when you draw something, a silhouette lang, alam mo na babae o lalaki yun.
Like that.
Oh, 'di ba? So yung mga ganyan biologically, I think yung brain are wired to instantly identify male and female eh. And if you're gonna place something na a pronoun na opposite dun sa nakikita ng mata mo, it is extra effort, it is extra struggle. So you're making me, kumbaga pinapahirapan mo ang dating sa akin eh. Napahirapan mo ako.
If it were in my if that were me, okay. Kasi I was as a kid when I came out as gay, and hanggang ngayon I've lost a lot of friends who would insist on certain things about the way they addressed me. Every time I tell them that I'm gay, they always assume that I want to be treated like a woman.
Oh.
The thing is, I'm not. Sila na yung nagsasabi na, ay, si Lex, bading, ano ba, madam ka ba? And I'm like, no, lalaki ako na mahilig sa kapwa ko lalaki.
Oh.
And if it were the case, in my case to I would take into account what I look like outside and what I feel like inside are very different. You don't know what I look like inside or what I feel like inside. I wouldn't fault you for seeing me as a man. I wouldn't. Kasi responsibilidad ko na to either remind you, okay, by the way, she, her, ako, and some people nga have mga
Name
names
tags.
dito like name tags like she, her, and again, this is something that is constantly going to be debated.
Yes.
And I cannot give the definitive answer to it. I can only give my answer
Siguro,
to it.
Je, sa comment sections tayo mag-expound.
Oh,
Kasi
yeah.
malalim na topic
Sige,
ito.
pag-commentan ninyo yung sarap ng boses
And 1
ko.
hour na tayo.
Oo nga. So yun, siguro ituloy natin sa ibang episodes.
Sige.
Ang usapin na ito, madami pa tayong hindi na-tackle.
Sa comment
so,
sections.
yun muna.
Okay.
Yun muna, paalam.
Nagalag ang aming camera.
Oh, yaman na. Para tayong ano yun?
NPC.
Nagkaroon ng internet.
Hindi, yung si... ano yung nasa well?
Si Sadako.
Sadako. Ito.
Wag mo gawin niya. Anyway. Okay, paalam.
Alam, we are out.
Bye.